Good evening, gamers, and welcome to a very special short pause discussion here. I'm Ben. We're here on behalf of Short Pause. Joining me this evening, the rest of the Short Pause squad here, Mr. Brent Felsing, Mr. Frankie Ayler. Gentlemen, how we feeling this evening?
It was a busy weekend. Had a lot of gaming going on. Played a lot of Anthem. Played a lot of Resident Evil. But the weekend goes by quickly, and we are in the Midwest here. We're bracing for some nasty weather tonight. But hey, it's all good. We're still here. We're going to talk about Anthem. But I'm doing good, man. How are you doing?
Good. They've already canceled school for tomorrow, so we are bracing for the impending storm. I'm expecting tomorrow to be a disaster during the morning commute. I, of course, don't get a snow day. It's not how the working world works. But my kids will be at home, so they've got a snow day to partake in. Yeah, so I'm good, man. It's cold. It's gonna be cold as hell this week. I mean, it's gonna be really, really cold. I think the high on Wednesday is -2.
It's hot, dude.
That's the high. that's the high temperature. That doesn't even take into account the wind chill. So
gross.
I'll try and stay indoors that day. But Frankie, what's going on, dude?
Not a whole lot. Just like Brent, busy weekend, a lot of Anthem. I'm actually working on Doom. It's going to be my February Platinum trophy, so got some of that in today. And just Destiny, Resident Evil 2, whatever I can fire up.
I dig it. Yes, obviously the big reason we're here this evening is to talk Anthem. So this is the VIP demo weekend for Anthem. It just recently concluded, I think about an hour ago. So the VIP demo wrapped up. We spent some time with it. I was able to get in there with you guys last night. You two spent considerably more time with the demo than I have. So be very interested to get your thoughts on it. But basically, we're gonna break down our impressions of the demo, what we thought of it so far, hit on some of the hot button issues, so to speak, with the game as it sits right now, and we'll put a little bow on it and wrap it up. But we want to just have a nice discussion. Obviously, if you're in the chat, chime in. We want to hear what you guys have to say as well. If you're watching this video on demand after the fact, leave a comment. We want to know what you guys think of Anthem. And yeah, so let's get right down to business here. Brent, I want to start with you, man. Just hit me with it. So overall impressions of the Anthem demo. Where do you want to start with this thing, man?
Well, let's just address the elephant in the room. This demo did not start off. I think this started off in the absolute worst way it could have possibly started off for both EA and BioWare. There was a lot of anticipation for this demo. From my understanding, even though it was under NDA, there was a lot of positive feedback that came out of the alpha. There was a lot of people that were really impressed with it, and everyone was really, really excited to get their hands on this demo as more people would hop in for the VIP demo. EA announced shortly before that, they're like, hey, look, here's 3 more codes for your friends. Get them in. Everyone's going to be in there. It's going to be a wild party, and everyone's going to have fun. And, I mean, this thing started off just in shambles. I mean, it was just, connection issues, stuck at loading screens, couldn't even get past the title screen. There were people that were having experiences falling through the map. And, I mean, the thing is, like, at the beginning, at the very beginning, I think we all anticipated there would be some kind of server issues, some kind of connection issues as people start piling in. This, to me, I'm not one of those people that's like, man, it's 2019. Why aren't we prepared for this sort of thing? Look, this is going to happen for a long time going forward. This is just going to be the effect of so many people trying to log into a demo. So I'm not going to be a part of that little mob that's like, oh, this should be working perfect. No, it's not going to work perfect while people are loading in. So at first I was like, okay, I can deal with this. Hey, and like Frankie and I were saying all weekend, well, back to Resident Evil 2. So it was cool we had something else to play while we waited. But, when you hit 24 hours, and I mean, 24 hours, I'm not going to set a limit of when it's okay for a beta to work, but when they're sending out tweets saying, hey, look, PS4, PC, you guys are good to go, and it's still not working for a lot of people, that's where I think people start getting irritated and start wondering, what the hell are you talking about? And so once they start kicking out that feedback that everything's working great for a lot of people, but you go on Twitter, you go on Reddit, or you look at all these other social media outlets and people are complaining it's not working, that rubs people the wrong way. And, my biggest thought about this, the first couple 24 hours was, yes, the VIP people that couldn't get in, that's unfortunate because they're the ones that probably paid for the pre-order, whether it was digitally, where they had to pay for everything. I understand why they were upset, but the other thing that I think might have had a negative impact here is the fact that you got all those friend codes, and you're giving these out to people who maybe are on the fence or weren't considering buying the game, and they hop in there and they can't do anything. Okay, they can't do anything, and all of a sudden, those people are like, boy, I'm glad I didn't pay for this because this sucks. This isn't good. But it was just, overall, let's talk about that at first, you guys. Your thoughts on like the issues that were, there was a lot. There was a lot of issues here, boys.
Yeah, and just it's interesting you bring up the Franco thing, and whether it's right or wrong, you really only have one chance to make a first impression, and regardless of if this is a demo or a beta, and whether or not you tempered your expectations correctly or not, there were a lot of people, like you said, that tried to play this game at first and were off-put by their first experience with the game. Like I said, for whether that's right or wrong, we can debate about that, but the reality is there's a demo that was put out for a game that's very exciting to a lot of people. A lot of people are really jonesing to get into it, to see what the next entry in this loot shooter space is going to bring to the table. And a lot of people had a piss poor experience, not only during that first 12 hours, but the next 24 hours and throughout the entirety of the demo, if we're being honest. Right up until the very end, this thing was still having issues. We got a statement from BioWare where they were talking about what was going on with this, and it seems like a number of things aren't actually tied to the server issues.
Right.
So that's obviously the armchair quarterback thing to throw out there when this happens, like server issues. But there's a lot of other stuff going on under the hood with this game right now that we've got to get sorted out. So obviously we've got the server issues, we've got game crashes, we've got infinite loading screens, we've got frame rate issues on consoles. At least I haven't played the PC version, but the console versions of the game do have frame rate issues, unquestionably. So there's a lot that this game has to work on, and I think the other aspect that's a little bit concerning is, I get that whatever this build is from several weeks ago or whatever the case, and be like, I get all that, but the reality is this is the demo that was put out on the weekend of January 25th as we sit, less than a month away from the launch of this game after it's gone gold, and this is what people are sitting down to play, and there's clearly a lot of things that need to be adjusted and taken into account. So that is probably scaring some people as well. Like, man, we're really close to launch. This thing seems a little questionable from a technical standpoint. So I think that is mixed in with this as well. So yeah, definitely a mixed bag from the technical standpoint. Franklin, go ahead and hop in here on this, man.
Yeah, a lot of like what you guys had said. It's just a lot of really frustrating technical things to deal with. But my other big problems with this game aren't even technical things. I know when Monster Hunter World came out, that game got bashed for its, kind of shaky, bare bones party system. Dude, this is just as bad as Monster Hunter. You don't share the same hub space with people, so you don't know, like, who's in the suit, who's ready to go. You know what I mean? Like, it doesn't tell you anything on the screen that indicates if somebody's even ready to go on the mission or not. Outside of, sure, you can ready up, but you don't even know if they're in their javelin yet,
Mm-hmm.
So, but on top of that, even just going to your friends list initially, because you can have a favorites list in the game, which is helpful, but just scrolling through my friends list, like when I was first played this with Jamie, I had to go through, and even though he was online, he was not at the top of the list. I had to go through quite a bit of people to find him just to party up with him. So stuff like that's very frustrating because it's just such an old feeling system, compared to something like Destiny that just feels really seamless. I just hop on, highlight your name, I'm in your guys', on your fire team. It should be that simple. But, I'm not a developer. I don't know what goes into all that stuff. And obviously BioWare hasn't really been like a massive, multiplayer developer in the past, from my understanding. So, some of that stuff I can kind of overlook. But a system like that in this game, it's going to be very frustrating to try to work around a lot. And then the other thing is just there are too many loading screens. I'm talking in missions. Like you're flying around, you get to an area, you have to load into a cave. Why? We're in a mission together. I could be like 3 feet away, like going after this group of enemies, and you guys are a little closer to the objective. I can still see you guys, but I get this message popping up saying, "Oh, you're too far away from your friends. We're loading you in now." And then I have to wait another 20, 30 seconds to load in to the 5 seconds it would take me to flown over to where you guys were. And then, of course, if you happen to die, and you make the mistake of going to respawn because you're impatient and don't want to wait for someone to come get you, you have another load screen. But on top of that, and this is the thing that irritates me the most with that, is when you're playing with your friends, you have an outline of people, but you have no idea who's near you. Right. So if I'm down and I see an outline of someone, I don't know who to tell to come revive me.
Right.
Why? Why isn't that there? There's just a lot of fundamental things that the game does that could probably be fixed, but at the same time, like, that's the core functions of the game. That's not technical server issues. That's not, anything you could blame on a network problem or anything. That's their development choice for this game.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I just want to add one thing, boys, before we get into that. Like I said, Frankie has already mentioned Destiny 2. We're probably going to make some mentions of Destiny 2, but make no mistake, we're not comparing these two in terms of what Destiny 2 is and what Anthem is. We understand these are two different games, but we are going to compare the quality of life comparisons. There's a lot of stuff that when you play a loot shooter with friends, that's cooperative, and we're going into missions, and the way things are streamlined in Destiny 2 compared to how they're not so streamlined in Anthem, I think that is a comparison that can be made, because it's something I think that spreads across all genres. How accessible a game is, how streamlined it is, how easy it is to go through things and to find things and what have you. So I think this is a good... Destiny 2 is something we're going to mention a lot, because I think we talked about this on the stream last night. I think we take Destiny 2 for granted at this point because of how well Bungie has handled the MMO-ish online shooter. And then we look at what BioWare has implemented here. Yes, it's a 6-week-old build. Yes, they could make a lot of changes between now and launch. But it's just like, man, if this is what something to this degree is what we're going to be working with, that's a little disappointing. It's not user-friendly. The UI is kind of goofy in some areas as well. But, like I said, but going forward, we will mention some comparisons to Destiny 2, but make no mistake, we're not comparing the games in terms of gameplay and how you get stuff, but we will compare quality of life stuff.
And it's deeper than just Destiny, though. I mean, we have, like, The Division. Obviously, the Division 2 beta is going to be coming soon.
Yep.
Borderlands. I mean, there's precedent set in these games that this just has to live up to, and it's not. I think that's what our biggest problems is in a lot of places.
Agreed.
Yeah, definitely, and I mean we have to talk about Destiny 2 when it comes to Anthem. If we don't, then we're kind of missing the boat a little bit on this, because this is the game that, for all intents and purposes, really put this genre on the map, really brought it into the forefront of people's minds with what Destiny has done. And Anthem is trying to step into that space now. They're trying to do their own thing within this space. But we've been playing this game for the last 4.5 years. And we have things that we've watched change, grow, evolve. We have lessons that we've watched Bungie learn. So it makes sense that we talk about Destiny in some respect when we're comparing it to what's going on with Anthem here. So just back to Anthem now, and like you said, Brent, we'll get to Destiny in a little bit later on the discussion here. But Frankie, you were mentioning the party system, and I have to assume that it wasn't even working properly, because whenever last night when we were trying to like link up, when I would go to my friends list, there would be nobody on it. And I would have to go down to the favorite section, and there would be people in there, but I couldn't access that. And I don't know if that was just part of the beta, but you couldn't access the favorites location, and you'd have to go a few menus in and then back out, and then friends would start to show up. So there's some wonkiness with that, and hopefully they can work on that. And that's one of those things, man. If you just look at what Destiny's been able to achieve from just a matchmaking and a teaming up standpoint, like that's a system that you want to emulate in these kind of games. Like you want to talk to those guys, you want to take pieces from them and what they figured out, but the seamless way in which you can link up in that game is like you said, Brent, often taken for granted. So so there, like you guys mentioned too, it's not just the server stuff or the loading screens. There's other things in the game as well. The UI, not a huge fan of right now. especially after playing something like Destiny for the last 5 years. So they've got some work to do with that. That's not the prettiest, not the most endearing UI I think right now. Maybe too many menus to go through for some of the stuff as well. So they've got some things to work on with that. The frame rate issues, Brent, on that, do you think this is something they're gonna have shored up by launch?
I don't know if
at least like stability wise.
Yeah, I mean, I would assume this is something that they'll optimize prior to launch, because like you said, it's a 6-week-old build, and I mean, I don't know how much can change in 6 weeks, but I would expect it to be cleaned up a little bit more, especially in the high action areas. I mean, who knows? I mean, this is going to be a very demanding game. There's a lot of areas where there's a lot of enemies, a lot of the explosions in this game are pretty intense. It's the action when it heats up, it gets pretty wild. So I mean, whether or not the consoles themselves can handle that type of workload, I don't know. But I mean, I do expect it to be cleaned up in certain areas, especially like in Fort Tarsis and stuff like that. So, yeah, I mean, TFX God, he's in the chat. What's up, buddy? He said 25 frames per second on the One X in some instances. And I know when we were playing, we were doing that Stronghold last night on the Pro, and I mean, when that huge spider dropped down and we had ads everywhere, and he was throwing that web everywhere, it was really starting to chug. So there are some areas where it needs to be cleaned up, and I anticipate over time. I don't know if it'll be at launch, but I think we'll see it hopefully get smoothed out a little bit.
Yeah, definitely. So, yeah, technical, and there's weird like audio stuff. Like the audio just completely dropped out. I had to restart the game once just to get the audio to work again. The game was seemingly infiltrating our internet service as well. It was shut down party chats, and it was widespread in its maliciousness. So yeah, there was that. What else was going on technically wise? Does that pretty much cover the main stuff that we were running into?
I just remember the audio drops were frequent, where I'd be shooting my gun. I was like, do I have a silencer on? Like, why don't I hear anything? But yeah, it was mostly just frame rate stuff in heavy action areas, some audio drops here and there. And these are things I would anticipate that, like I said, there should be easy cleanups, or at least tighten up the frame rate, clean up the audio, and everything should go. Because I mean, when it's rocking, the audio is great. Explosions, the guns all sound good. They all have a lot of weight to them when you shoot them. There's a lot of oomph behind them. So I mean, the audio work is great. I mean, when it's working, but it does need a little tune up before launch.
There are also other random things that were happening to us. I know for me, I got to level 12 after doing a free roam, and I was playing with Jamie at the time, and he had left, so he was out of my game, out of my party. When I had finished the free roam, it popped up. He was still somehow in the game, I guess, even though he wasn't even online anymore. And even though I hit rank 12, when I left, when I got back to Fort Tarsis, and I'm like, because it's, you get a pop-up saying, hey, your next javelin could be unlocked. I'm like, hell yeah, that's what I wanted. So, I get back there and I'm running around like, who am I, where's this other, javelin suit? And, I notice in the corner, I'm back to level 11. I'm like, what the hell?
Yeah.
So I felt like there was a lot of stuff that I was getting in either, it didn't for whatever reason carry over. And then there were other instances where, you get guns and stuff at the end of the level. Like I remember getting an autocannon, I think it was. And I was like, dude, hell yeah. And grenade launchers, I'm like, yes, I want to use these. I can't find them anywhere. And it wasn't until I walked over to my vault, which you have a vault, by the way, that, it tells you each weapon type that there's certain classes that can't use them.
Yep.
I didn't know that. I just assumed that these, drops were missing altogether, especially after getting screwed out of my javelin. So
right.
And stuff like that needs to be addressed, I think, more so than some of this other stuff too.
Yeah, and you mentioned the leveling. Out of all the things that we've talked about so far, the frame rate and the audio stuff, I don't want any progression issues going into this, especially if you're ranking up and you're supposed to unlock javelins, or say you get a sweet weapon drop, and then, that you see at the one screen, and then you go back to Fort Tarsis and you lose your rank and you lose that weapon. That would piss me off more than anything else in terms of like technical issues and stuff like that. I better not have any progression lost saves between load screens. I don't want any of that. That would be that's more of a concern than anything else.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we had some enemies were like randomly disappearing as well.
Yeah.
When you're like going through the levels, that seemed to be happening quite a bit. I saw some other people talking about that as well. So clearly, technically technically speaking, there's a lot of things that need to be cleaned up, a lot of things that need to be addressed. So I guess to wrap a bow up on this portion of the conversation, speaking to the elephant in the room with the technical issues, but Brent, I ask you, like, do we have a right to be concerned about this game when it eventually launches on February 22nd? Like, should we be concerned, technically speaking, about this game after what we experienced in the demo? Or, like you said, is this an old build? All this stuff's going to be cleaned up by then? Are we just much ado about nothing? Or should we legitimately be concerned about the state that this game's going to be in when it launches on February 22nd?
First, all of us here, we played in a lot of betas. We've played in a lot of betas, some good, some bad. A lot of people in the chat have played in a lot of betas, some good, some bad. And we all know that as disappointing as it can be, there's always a possibility that it's going to be the next Rainbow Six Siege. I mean, if you guys remember, the betas for that game a week before launch were absolutely terrible. They were not good.
Terrible.
The game was
bad.
not in good shape. But if you look at Rainbow Six Siege now, I mean, it's consistently one of the most watched games on all streaming services. It constantly is getting updated. It's one in my opinion, it's the best competitive shooter this gen. It's just a great game, and it just came with time, but there's been other games that haven't fared so well. And the other thing I think that kind of hurts us a little bit is if you look at who's involved. You look at EA, and boy, they've just had issues with Battlefront 2. They had issues with Battlefield 4 back in the day. I mean, EA is tied to a lot of bad news in terms of like games and performance and whatnot. You look at BioWare, and yes, this is a different team, but it is BioWare, and people who may not be as informed as like we are and our viewers and stuff, they know that BioWare has multiple teams. They will just think, okay, look, the Mass Effect Andromeda was a total disaster. And this is another BioWare joint, and now you got the word of mouth going, this was a disaster. That can spread out to the less informed people, and that can really, really hurt this game. It can really hurt this game because of the people who are involved. But my opinion is, like, look, this was a 6-week-old build. I will say, even though I didn't like some of their tweets, BioWare was very transparent. They were very talkative. They were very upfront about it, and they seem very confident they can get this stuff fixed. Hopefully we'll see a better performance next week when it goes to an open beta. It has to do better next week.
Yeah. What do you think, Frankie? Oh,
Wait,
sorry.
he's still talking.
Oh, sorry. Sorry. We lost you there for a minute, Brent. Go ahead.
Oh, okay. But I would say, like, I have faith in it. I won't say I have faith in it. I'm going to give it a chance. I'm going to give it some chance simply because of what we've seen from other games like Rainbow Six Siege. This game could still do very, very well. Let's just hope it was just a bad weekend.
Mm-hmm. So Frankie, what do you think, man? Should we be legitimately worried about the state of this game come February 22nd?
I feel like I know I am, and that's really just because I know they've posted a lot of things over the weekend about all these weird workarounds and all this stuff, and I know one of the last things they mentioned was the infinite load screen doesn't seem to be happening to a lot of players, which is bullshit.
Oh yeah, I don't like that at all.
Almost every single person I've talked to playing that game ran into that problem. That's not an
it happened to us. It happened to us at least 15. 20 times.
Yeah.
That's not
I
between everybody that was on there.
Yeah, hell yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we all had to kick out of that game at least 4 or 5 times, in the 3 hours we played the other night. So, to see them saying, "Oh yeah, it's not as widespread as you think," that's concerning. Like it's a big fucking problem for a lot of people. And when you can't load into your game, you know what I mean? Like when people buy that thing and they get home and that's the first thing that happens to them, that disc is going back to the store. I don't know anyone who's going to buy that game, have that happen to them, and then just assume, oh, okay, well, maybe, the game just this disc goes bad, and then get another copy, go home. Same thing happens again. People are not going to tolerate that buying this game. And if they don't prioritize that as a problem to solve, which from what I'm reading, I don't have faith that they do. I don't even think they even know how that bug is happening or anything about it. So I honestly don't think like the things that need to be fixed are going to be ready in time for launch.
Well, let's hope not. I mean, they can't launch they can't launch this game with an infinite loading screen bug. Like they just can't. Like that bug can't be in the game at launch. Like you said, that's just going to destroy the game.
But guys,
it can't happen.
But guys, you just got to set the clock on your computer to auto and not manual, and that'll fix the problem. Doctus, what's up, dude? Doctus is in the chat. I haven't talked to Doctus in a while. What's up, dude?
Yeah, don't be on Wi-Fi either.
Yeah, don't. Yeah, when he said that, when he started asking people, "You're not on Wi-Fi by any chance here?" Every time I see it, I'm just like, dude, I don't want to hear that. I don't want to hear that. I play everything else on Wi-Fi. Your game is not different. It's okay. Get this thing working properly on all, whether it's Wi-Fi or Ethernet.
Yeah. It got to the point where we were, thinking about making bingo cards, and on those bingo cards, we would just put outlandish things about workarounds, and like slap your firstborn 3 times and turn around in a circle, and then you should load into the game. But yeah. So I agree with you guys. I think there is some cause for concern because of some of the things we experienced, but there's a lot of hope because we do still have several weeks before the launch of the game. It is gold as well, so that's something else that we need to consider. But I assume that there's going to be some type of a day one patch available for this game that's probably going to be somewhat hefty, that is going to address some of the stuff that's going to come up not only in the demo this weekend but in the subsequent demo the following weekend. So we'll see how all that progresses. But moving on from there, let's talk about the actual gameplay that's in Anthem. Like, let's talk about the meat and potatoes of this thing, the gameplay itself. So the shooting, the flying, the swimming, if you will, the missions, everything on the table right now. Frankie, talk to me about the gameplay in Anthem, man.
So a lot of the way that game plays, actually, I love flying around. I love, especially, I unlocked the interceptor javelin, and Brent, obviously likened it to the hunter in Destiny. It's a much more nimble, feeling class to fly around as. You got your triple jump, and just flying around in that game is so satisfying. And that's the thing I think all of us are worried about initially was, well, this is the thing they have to get right. That's going to be your main, way to get around. And flying feels fantastic. I think they absolutely nailed that until you get underwater. Yeah, there was obviously that section that we found ourselves underwater, and it was so disorienting. You get down there, and I know there's kind of lights to kind of guide you, but when you drop down there, you are flying down there. You're not just slowly sinking down, like you shoot straight underwater, and you're at the bottom and trying to get your bearings, and it's a mess just trying to get yourself situated to even figuring out where you're supposed to go. And on top of that, though, I mean, obviously the gunplay is, going to be the big thing we're going to be focusing on. And a lot of that feels really good if you're using an automatic weapon. Mm-hmm. I feel like if you're using like an auto rifle, light machine gun, it feels really good. Even shotguns, the sniper rifle felt really nice from when I had used it a couple times. But when you start getting into these weird, auto rifles, or I think it was a marksman rifle I was using, that it's kind of like a scout rifle. But these guns that have these burst fires, you have like forget the name of the gun. I think it's the Warden. It's an auto rifle.
Yeah, it's the Warden. It's like a pulse rifle.
Yeah, it fires a 4-round burst, and that's great. But I feel like that and the marksman rifle that I was using, after like the 3 bullets fire out, you go to shoot the next shot, and there's a weird delay between.
Yes.
It's off-putting to use anything that's on an automatic weapon or a shotgun or a sniper rifle. And those are the guns that I've always gravitated in any game. Uncharted 2 multiplayer, I was always grabbing the FAL, I think it was. That's a burst rifle. Destiny, obviously, I love pulse rifles. Those are the guns I gravitate to, and for me, using those in this game sucks. I absolutely refuse to use them, and that's super disheartening because like I said, I love those. But yeah, so I mean, obviously, there's a lot to talk about, but I guess I'll leave with that for now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and just kind of jump on what Frankie was talking about, that Warden. Yeah, when I fire a pulse rifle in a lot of games, or like anything that has a burst round, I have a certain way of shooting them. And like you said, there was a couple ways where there was this weird delay if you pushed it too soon, and it was like, why aren't you shooting? Because I know how I want to fire these guns. I know exactly how I want to fire them, and so I thought that was a little weird. But I actually hopped back in there today, and last night I was pretty much using just assault rifles and the light machine guns, and so today I was like, I'll try out the heavy pistol, and I think I tried using one of the marksman rifles, and I actually didn't think they were too bad because they were all single shots. I know how to use those. It was weird, the marksman, though, you couldn't aim down the sight, or for whatever reason it wouldn't let me aim down the sight, and but I mean, I could still get some good shots of people. The heavy pistol is super effective.
You hip firing the marksman rifle?
No, not hip firing, but when it's over the shoulder when you do when you aim. No, I'm not
Yeah.
not hip firing not hip firing.
Say you can aim down the
Counterproductive.
sights. So I just think it's funny that you can't aim down the sights of the marksman.
It was
rifle.
really strange. Yeah, it was just over the shoulder. It was like, okay, I guess that's cool. But you know, I want to go back to the what we were talking about with the javelins and flying around. Yeah, flying around is super fun. I really like that. But I also like how useful it is in combat. You know, to zip around an enemy, get behind them because they have a weak spot there. Using, you know, and I also like how, you know, when you're flying around, as soon as you aim down or hit the shoulder button to aim, you automatically go into hover mode. So you can dash behind an enemy, line up for those critical hits, and then dash around the road to avoid enemy fire. I think the more I was playing with the javelins and getting my head around the controls, I really like how it's not just cool to fly around the map, but how you can actually use it in combat, and it's super effective to line up some good shots and to avoid enemy fire. I thought it was a lot of fun playing on those javelins.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, so I, you know, what you guys are saying, a lot of some of the guns I was using, I wasn't able to like get the rhythm down, and I'm just gonna chalk that up to I'm just not as familiar with this game yet. So there's going to be a learning curve to learn the weapons that are in this game. Obviously, when you've been playing something like Destiny for the last 5 years, there's a certain way you expect the guns to fire. There's certain things you have in your head or things that you think about when you go to play one of these games, and this is a different kind of game. It's a third-person game, so there's you know, different things that are going to go into that. So yeah, but I was thinking the same thing. And some of the shorter firing weapons, they had a rhythm that I didn't quite grasp at first. So it is something that I'm gonna have to go back and take a look at. But yeah, the auto rifles felt pretty good for the most part. I think the gunplay from a third person perspective, you know, for what that is, you know, I think felt pretty solid for the most part. One of the interesting things about Anthem, and something that many people have pointed out, is this game's less about your guns and more about your abilities. So your abilities are on a short cooldown for the most part. Your ultimate ability obviously has a much longer cooldown in terms of when you can use that. But much of this game is about figuring out how to chain your abilities together, even work together with your teammates, build your combos. And that's something that I was not able to grasp playing last night. I didn't even realize a lot of the stuff that was going on with that. So there is a whole nother layer to combat that I'm gonna have to figure out at some point. But what do you think about that aspect of the game, Frankie? So it was almost like the guns take a back seat in this game, and it's interesting, and it's a little jarring at first when you first get in there and you're trying to get your hands on everything, and you realize, oh man, my grenade's coming back like every couple seconds here, and I can keep chucking this thing out. So what do you think about that aspect of Anthem? Is that something that you can see yourself getting used to and liking?
Actually, that's one of the things that with the Interceptor that I realized right away was that class, you're different, because each class, I feel like they have their own different abilities they can use. You know, your Ranger has those pretty cool like seeking missiles you can shoot out, and you know, the first thing you get when you hop in the Interceptor are throwing stars. You have 4 of them. I'm like, oh yeah, all right, cool. So I mean, the more, and the other really nice thing about this game is, like, your abilities can change. Like, you can get different grenades. You know, there's these really cool seeking grenades, frost grenades, infernal grenades. There's all kinds of stuff. But for the Interceptor class, you know, messing around with that, you know, you have this dash attack where you hit somebody and then after 4 seconds they explode. And, you know, the throwing, like pairing that with the throwing stars and how nimble that class is, I felt like the longer I was playing with it, the more I kind of saw, like, I see why people, you know, would love or hate this, because the guns for that javelin in particular don't feel like they're significant. But when you're in there with your abilities with that one, you know, throwing ninja stars, jumping up, hovering around someone, throwing down, you know, either I think there's a boomerang you can have that, you know, does some damage, or you have like that dash. There's all kinds of stuff. And, you know, on top of that, each class also has like a support ability. So, you know, initially when we got into that javelin, there wasn't, you know, any items equipped for that. So we just assumed that there wasn't one. But one of the last missions that we did, I got a drop that gave me, you know, at least something, I think, that took away any weird buffs that we had when I used it. And I got a couple more as I was playing too. So like those being able to use those, the support abilities, we were playing with Fear the Beard, he had, these different things that he could drop down that would, boost damage that we did, or, negate damage coming in, and all kinds of stuff, like all kinds of really cool stuff that are, aren't just, gunplay. So, and even using the super abilities, the Ranger one's really cool. You have like your kind of tank down and, firing off, like a big, like a Wardcliff coil thing. You just shoot off and a whole bunch of rockets go everywhere. And, the Interceptor class has that basically Blade Dancer, which I thought was lame at first, but the more you use it, like it has like a really nice duration to it. So you can get in there, clean house. You don't take any damage, so you just get in there, you wreck things, get back out of harm's way. It's super effective using that stuff, and it's a lot of fun. Like I think that's where, the gameplay loop of Anthem is, going to set it apart from everything else.
Yeah, and I like how you mentioned like the different abilities that each javelin has, and you can really like dig into the nitty gritty, like how we're gonna do stuff. Like the Ranger, I believe they have the well where it's like you can do the weapons, like the weapon buff in this little well here, and then like say if I had the the Interceptor, one of his specialties is you can throw this target this thing at an enemy, and whatever enemy you hit takes 33% more damage. So if you're playing a boss and I throw that at the enemy and then somebody drops that damage well, you're basically bringing everything together, and you can do significant damage to a boss or one of the bigger enemies. So there's actually a lot, and that's one of the things I really, really like about this game, is just how much strategy can go into play with your abilities. And like you said, they actually recharge a lot quicker than what we're used to in Destiny. You can get some of these back rather quickly. And it's just, I think it benefits the moment-to-moment combat when you can constantly keep using your special abilities, which is like Boy said, guns are good, they're effective, but it is about your special abilities and chaining them together and building those combos and doing as much damage as possible. I mean, it's really, really good, and that part I do like about it a lot. I think it's very strong. The gameplay in that regard, the depth of the combat is really, really good.
Yeah, one of the points I've seen several people make is the fact that Anthem doesn't have a PvP component to it. So this is one of the things that's going to set it apart from Destiny and the Division and other games in this space. But with it not having a PvP component, this is going to allow BioWare to do pretty much any and everything they want with the PvE portion of the game. So if they wanna make the javelins just ultra ridiculously overpowered and send them out into the world like that, like they can do that, and it's not gonna negatively affect the PvP portion of the game. So it's one of the areas I'm interested to see how BioWare explores. So I think it's a good point that people have brought up in regards to that aspect of Anthem. So I'm very curious to see where they go from here and how they build on what the foundation that they've laid with this. But yeah, so it definitely takes some getting used to. It's a different style of play, but yeah, I think it's a lot of fun when you're actually in there and you're playing the mission. Once you get through all the technical BS, once you get into the actual game and you're playing the mission, you're going up against the enemies. I thought it was a lot of fun. So the abilities are fun. It's fun to kind of learn how to chain things together. I know there's some people have some issues with the bullet sponginess of some of the enemies, and I get that. Maybe that'll change as we go along in the game. Maybe you get stronger and you start to wipe the floor with those kind of guys as you build up your character. We'll have to see how that goes along. But the missions are lengthy. Like that stronghold we played is it's kind of like a strike. Yeah. But it's an elongated strike. It's a very long strike. So it's a long, like, grinded out strike. I mean, that stronghold took us like an hour to get through that thing. 45 minutes to an hour, something along those lines. So it's a big extended combat sequence. There were some light mechanics mixed in there, and of course we had the big boss battle at the end. So it's set up very, very similar to the strikes that we've come to know and love in Destiny, just in a very elongated format when it comes to that. So I thought those were cool. Definitely interested to see more of those. You guys mentioned the flying. Obviously flight is something that's been very hit or miss in video games over the years. And I think what BioWare has done here is they've got a good system they've cooked up with Anthem so far. It definitely feels good to fly. Once you start figuring out how you can chain your flight and your hovering and your combat abilities and all that stuff's kind of working together, you create this really just smooth symphony of destruction that when you're watching somebody who knows what they're doing can be pretty cool to take in. So so from a gameplay perspective, I do like what BioWare's done here with Anthem. Don't have too many complaints on that front. I am excited to get in there and learn more about the game and learn more about these strategies and how to kind of piece everything together.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's one of the strong things. So the combat's really good. I want to dive into the weapons a little bit. Super Cooper's in the chat. He says Anthem's better than Destiny. Well, I'm not ready to say that just yet, but there is a lot of potential here, and we'll talk about the we'll talk about the verticality. He mentions verticality in Anthem is a blast. I think that ties into the flying and the level design. So we'll touch on that in a second. But I want to talk about the weapons a little bit more. The crafting elements of it. Obviously, we didn't get the full experience, but we got to get to see an idea of you go in, you complete these missions, you complete world events, and you're able to get the resources you need to craft items. And the more that you use a certain gun, I found out today, the more you use it, the more blueprints you'll unlock, the better the blueprints you'll actually unlock for those guns. So that's going to, if you want to commit to a certain class of weapon, if you want to get the best blueprints, if you want to get really good builds, you're going to have to keep using the weapons. And I dig that. I think that's really cool. Adds to the grind. But I do like the fact that, when you go in there and if you build like a common weapon, it has like maybe one perk on it. And then when I started building the rare weapons, you could see there were 3 or 4 different perks on it. It's just going to get better and better as you rank those up. So I love that sort of thing, especially the type of stats that we saw in there. That kind of stuff really tailors, trying to find the best weapon that tailors my gameplay style. I think that's super addicting when you're sitting there constantly trying to find the resources to craft that one assault rifle that fits not only your style, but maybe the special abilities that you have. There's certain things in there that are tied to your class, and I think that's pretty rad. So I really, really like the crafting. I want to explore it more, but that could be a very addictive part of this game.
Yeah, that's something I didn't even dabble in at all. I don't know anything about the crafting or how it works. Didn't get to experience that in the game at all. And I know it's in there, but didn't have any firsthand experience with it, at least this first go around with the demo. How about you, Frankie? Did you play around with that at all?
Yeah, a little bit. I know the vast majority of it's obviously locked, not in this demo, but it's a very light introduction to, some of the systems that will be in play. And I really do like, like Brent's talking about the blueprint system. I think that's really cool. You have these abilities you can craft that give. I think it's the team. It's not just you.
But some of those are buff the team and everything. Yeah.
Yeah. So there's things you can craft to equip in between. Expeditions. You can. It looks like you can have up to 3 when you hit max level. So you have different things in there that buff. The strength of your javelin, or you add like a 10% reduction in cooldown time to your abilities, and there's all kinds of stuff like that. So that's the stuff I can't wait to get in there and see the breadth of what we're going to be able to craft. And is it going to turn doing things like going off on free roams? Are we going to be is there going to be a reason to want to go out there and find some of these resources that we're going to need to craft this stuff? That's what I want to know.
Yeah, and like I said, I'm not saying this is as deep as Diablo, but it is Diablo light in terms of you're looking at the weapons and you can see the little perks that it gives you. That kind of stuff, I think that stuff is sexy. That stuff will have me constantly just getting down to a granular level and seeing exactly what does this gun do and what do I want it to do. Go out and craft some more or find some more resources and just constantly keep crafting until you get that one roll that you really, really like. Obviously they've started adding that to Destiny with the Black Armor. We know we see this. We just want to constantly, anything that's going to keep me going out there and collecting resources and building weapons, and the weapons are just going to get better and better as you go higher up in the quality of them. So that is super, super interesting. And like you said, the fact that it carries over to also some of the support gear, that's hot, dude. That can be a very very addicting experience.
Yeah, for sure. So overall, I think gameplay gets a thumbs up from us. I mean, it's definitely an aspect of the game that we can get behind, and we can see the potential in it. And there's a lot more, I think, to mine from that. And I'm looking forward to digging in some more into that next week when the demo comes back out to see what I can delve into when it comes to that. So while the gameplay is good, there are some issues with the things around the gameplay, I think. So we've talked about the technical issues, but I want to bring up some of the other things with the game. So one, locked loadouts. Not a huge fan of those.
Yeah.
Do not like being able to not access my guns. And once again, I've been playing Destiny for 5 years now. I can go in and put on my guns and do all that whenever I want. So it could be I'm just used to that, and I don't understand this whole lock to loadout thing. But at first blush, my first experience with Anthem, I want to be able to go in and change out my weapons. We're in the middle of a mission, and I'm using a gun that I've never used before. I'm like, this thing sucks, man. I don't want to use this weapon. I want to go get something else that I have, and I can't do that. So I'm locked into this thing, and especially when you're doing something like a stronghold or these missions are a decent length. So when you're in the middle of that, you could be locked in for 30, 45, 60 minutes to a gun that you don't really want to use. So obviously you can go out and you can maybe test things out in the free play before you decide to go into a mission, but that just seems very convoluted, an extra step that's unnecessary.
Yeah, and even that, you'd have to go out, try out the 2 guns that you have, then go back, swap them out for 2 more and go test them out. And I think that's where, like, not even just Destiny 2, but like Borderlands or Diablo, as soon as a weapon drops, you can pick it up and attack and equip it and use it. In this game, it just says, rare item found. And you're like, okay, what is it? And you can't see or even use that item until after the mission's over. And I feel like that's, look, I understand you don't want to copy every game, but just because you're doing something different doesn't mean it's accessible and a good idea. And I think this is kind of goofy that you can't, carry a couple more pieces of equipment with you, or a couple more weapons on you to switch them out in certain situations. And like you said, I'm not going to know how half of these guns are going to perform until I'm on the mission or I'm in a free play zone. And like I said, if you don't like it, you're like, okay, cool. Now I got to go through a load screen, go back to Fort Tarsis, go into the Forge, grab 2 more guns, go back out and test them. I don't want to do all that. That's not a good idea. I don't care if it's different and they're trying some cool stuff. No, that's just not a good idea. And that's the only disappointing thing. And like I said, when you're used to Diablo and you're used to Borderlands, or you're used to Destiny, when a weapon drops, a new item drops, dude, I don't want to wait to see what it is. And not only that, I got to wait to see what it is. I got to wait till I go back to Fort Tarsis to equip it and go out and try it and test that. I want to use that thing right then and there. And that's not entitlement. That's just, we've seen it done in a lot of games, and it's a great idea. If it's not here, that just seems counterproductive, and it kind of kills the excitement of getting a weapon, because you can't use it until you load into Fort Tarsis and come back out. I just think that's kind of silly. No other way around it.
That was one of my favorite things in Borderlands, is when guns dropped, you could just look at them, like it would tell you all the stats, and if it's a gun you wanted, you hold down square and you literally pick it up and equip it.
Yeah.
And even the other thing too is, there's games like I want to say Sniper Elite, but it's not Sniper Elite, Strange Brigade. You're playing through that, and throughout the levels, as you're progressing, you have weapon boxes. So if you want to switch out your weapons, you can. So even if you can't just like dedicate, like something off of, your I forget what they call it in this game, basically the Cortex. Like, you can't go in there and switch out weapons on the fly. At least put item boxes somewhere. So I have stuff in my inventory. I can go switch out whatever, do whatever I want to do. But like for me, like when I started using the Warden, obviously the description tells me it's a 4-burst auto rifle. I'm like, okay, cool. So, I go in knowing what the weapon is, but when I start using it and seeing how it performs and how it's well below what my expectations are, I don't want to try to sit here and, play through this mission with these tough enemies with this gun that I hate. Right. Which, again, is kind of how I learned to just rely on my abilities. But I don't know. I still feel like there's things that need to be done to the guns to make them, appealing. And on top of that, I assume at some point at the end game, the guns, your gear, like that stuff is going to be the thing that's going to carry you forward. That's the only reason a lot of people stay on with Destiny. I mean, look at Destiny 1. I mean, if all of us weren't chasing after Gallarhorns for the better part of a year until, Xur finally sold it again near the end of the life of Destiny 1, I mean, how many of us would have been doing, all the raids every week, all the nightfalls, trying to get this drop? If you don't have an attachment to the guns, if they don't feel special enough, what is there for you to do after the game's over?
This is the aspect of the game that probably drives me most insane. And it's like, look, this is, for all intents and purposes, Anthem has positioned itself as a new loot shooter in this space. So if that's the case, your loot should be an integral part of this game. And when you get a drop and you have no idea what it is, and you can't switch out your weapons, you can't try any of this stuff out, you get to the end of a mission, and you get some big bulk screen that shows you everything that you picked up along the way. That's a garbage system, dude. It is not what I want to see in a loot. The game is about loot. Like you said, once we get to the end game, that is going to be the thing that drives us. Is presumably is the loot that you get in this game. Eventually, you are going to run out of content to play. You will have played this content. You will have completed it. What is going to drive you in the end game? It's got to be the loot. It's got to be the items that you pick up. And if you cannot see the items that you pick up or equip them and use them, what in the hell is the point?
Right.
This baffles me. I don't understand this at all. No. So that was the thing. I started playing last night. I'm running over. I'm picking up stuff. I'm like, what is going on right now? Uncommon item. Okay, great. Where is it? Oh, it's on this inventory screen at the end of the game with 20 other things. What is that?
Yeah.
Can we please not have this system be in the game? Please, BioWare, I don't know if you're listening to this, if you're listening to anything that we say, just do this one thing. Please fix this system. This cannot be the way that this game operates from a loot perspective. It just can't.
I mean, that's the one thing like Frankie was talking about when you're playing Borderlands and you see a purple item drop or an orange item, you're like, oh, crap, what is this? You go and look and you're like, oh, my God, it's the gun I've been waiting for. Or in Destiny, when that yellow thing pops up on the screen, you're like, oh, my God, there it is. There's the exotic I've been looking for. And this one, you could run over a purple item or an orange item, and it's just going to say, legendary found. Okay, you know what I'm going to do? If we're in the middle of a stronghold, I'm backing out. I'm leaving. As soon as I get that, I'm leaving. Screw you guys. I'm out. I want to go see what my item is. I'll come back if I want to. But I mean, that kills it, dude. For a game that is a loot shooter, loot is the focus. Shooting is the focus. It's a loot shooter. I want to see this awesome weapon I just got. You can't even look at it. You can't even equip it. I feel like that's just a little goofy. I don't care what genre you think this is or how it should play or it needs to be different. I think this is just, this is a really bad idea.
I just don't get it, man. Help me understand. Help me understand why this is the thing. That in your loot-based game, I do not see the loot until some bulk inventory screen at the end of the mission. And then, in order for me to get it, I gotta waddle my ass through Fort Tarsus to get to the forge and figure out, what thing just dropped and if it's useful. That to me is the other thing that like pulls the guns away from this game. Like, at some point, the weapons should be a cool part of this game. Right now, they're not. They're kind of like an afterthought. That's because you're using your abilities and all that's fun. But at some point, you do want that loot to be special. You want that to be something that's driving us. And I don't think we're going to be able to get any armor pieces, right? You get your javelin, you can do some customization thing with that, and you'll have some, nodes or whatever you can fill with different abilities on that. But the main thing that's going to be driving us has to be these weapons that we're going after, and we need to be able to like put those things on, equip them, and use them. I don't think this is crazy talk here. This to me just makes a ton of sense in your loot game. Like you said, you've seen it in Borderlands, seen it in Destiny, you've seen it in Diablo, seen it in all these games come before, and unless there's some like game design thing I'm just completely missing here, I'm not. I just don't get this decision right now.
I feel like even Mass Effect Andromeda, like if you, I don't even remember how you acquired weapons in that game, honestly, but I do remember that you could call down like a drop that had all your weapons in it. So if you want to change your loadout on the fly, you could do that. That was their last game. Bring that mechanic in.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Super Cooper says it's like Christmas every time you finish the mission. I don't want Christmas after the mission. I want it when I pick my gift up. I'm not going to sit there and pick up my Christmas present and be like, all right, guys, I'm going to just set it over here and finish all this stuff up. And no, I want to open my shit right there, okay? I want to see my stuff right now. It's not a good design choice. It's not a good idea. It should be looked at. I don't know how much they can change at this point or how they can do it or whatever. This might be something it'll break the game if they do it, but I just think it's kind of a goofy idea.
And I don't know if you noticed this too, but each weapon has a certain power attached to it. So there's essentially a power level that you have in this game as well. Mm-hmm. Like Destiny, which levels your character up to like an uncommon ranger, whatever the hell that means. Are those numbers, do they mean anything other than, they're bumping up that number?
Yeah, what I think it does is it just makes it'll just, dictate whether, how powerful your javelin is or your character is. The higher stuff you add up, everything comes together. All of a sudden you're an uncommon ranger, and then the next step would be you're a rare ranger, and maybe there's perks that come with each rank that come to your character. Obviously, I have no idea. I didn't get that high, but no, we're not Grinches, Super Cooper. We're just not gonna just celebrate this game as the second coming just yet.
Yeah, you know what? You know what version of Christmas this is like? Imagine we wake up in the morning, we go under our Christmas tree, all of our presents are there, and what we do is we open up all of them, and in every time we open up a present, it's in a cardboard box, and that cardboard box we're not allowed to open. So we open that present and we set it to the side. We open the next present, we set it to the side. So we get to the end of the Christmas, and under the Christmas tree is a bunch of cardboard boxes that we just open and have no idea what's inside. Once Christmas is completely finished, then we open those boxes and find out what's inside that. That is not the version of Christmas I want, and that is not the version of Christmas I want from Anthem.
And you know what? If that was my Christmas, you damn right I'd be a Grinch. I'd be a huge Grinch.
It's also you putting all the boxes together and not knowing who's opening what boxes.
But look, man, we're gonna be honest about our experiences with this game. There's things that we really, really like, and there's some things that we don't like, and we're gonna be honest about it. And I think this game has a lot of potential. I really do. There's a lot of good stuff that I like in there, but there's some questionable decisions that I hope they revisit. But I mean, in terms of like the weapons and stuff, I think it's really cool when you do find a good weapon. I just wish you could look at it sooner. That's the only thing that I want to say about that.
Yeah, and that kind of goes back to the greater conversation we were talking about a little bit earlier. The things outside of the gameplay that we have issues with. Just the UI as a whole, just the interface of the game, it's just overall a little bit clunky and not as smooth as I want to see from this game. Just for instance, something like the vault you were talking about earlier, Frankie. So we have a vault that's got weapons in it, and it tells you certain things in there, but from what I understand, at least from what I saw in the demo yesterday, is you can't equip anything from the vault, right? It's just you see the stuff that you have in there.
Yeah.
In order to equip stuff, you then got to go over to the forge, which has the same stuff in the forge. And then at that point, you can then equip the weapons. But you have certain information that you can glean from the vault, like which classes of character can access the weapon that you don't get from the forge, and vice versa. So why? Like, I don't get why there's a vault. Like, why is there that extra step in there? Like, why can't we just have all of that combined into one thing? Like, why can't there be a forge and a vault in one? Why does it have to be the two separate things? So it's things like that, and just the whole getting into the mission, and just the whole the clunky matchmaking, the partying up system, and just you'll play a mission and you'll probably go through 4 or 5 load screens over the course of that mission. It's just it's just there's some things around that are not as smooth as I would like to see. Anything else that I'm missing in terms of like things around the game that could use some work?
Can we talk about Matthias?
Do you want to talk about story elements?
Actually, let's in 1 second we're going to talk about Matthias, but I'm going to take this opportunity to talk about Fort Tarsus.
Yes.
So Fort Tarsus sucks. Just to be blunt. I hate the way you move in Fort Tarsus, and I don't know why the decision was made, but you have this weird like staccato pacing. Your character moves way slower than he should be. It feels like there's an inertia or a force pushing against you as you're trying to walk through Fort Tarsus. It's really strange. And as we found out yesterday, to make it even stranger, if you were to simply pan the camera down and look at your feet as you're muddying and just pacing through Fort Tarsus, if you look at your feet, you're actually running, which makes it even weirder. So if you look at the ground, your character is running, and you actually get the sense that you're moving. But then as soon as you look straight ahead, you're back to this weird molasses inertia thing. You can't run through Fort Tarsus. So
you can, though. I apologize. I didn't mean to cut you off. Mark Dara, he did say the ability to run is there. It's just not in the demo, which is weird. But you will be able to. Yeah, you will be able to run in Fort Tarsus, or at least move quicker than what, like you said, walking into a gale force wind. Okay.
All right, so that's good to know. Maybe that will alleviate some of the issues I have with Fort Tarsus. But moving around that area absolutely sucks in the demo. So yeah, hopefully they can get that together. The motion blur inside of Fort Tarsus is weird. It's just moving around in there. It's almost nauseating.
I'm not gonna lie.
It's weird.
Yeah, that's it's funny. Optic Ghost goes, just look down the whole time. That's the problem. When I was looking down and then looking up, and then like you get that speed adjustment, I was like, oh, the last time I felt like that was playing Arizona Sunshine in VR. I was like, oh, this. I don't know how I feel about this. I don't feel too good watching this. So yeah. It's just it's very strange. But well, like I said, hopefully once we get past this demo, this build that's just missing all sorts of features, we'll be able to move quicker through Fort Tarsis. That's
a super strange omission. The ability to run in Fort Tarsis is only available in the finalized game. So yeah, not impressed with Fort Tarsis right now. There's a lot of aspects of Fort Tarsis that are unavailable right now in the demo. There's a ton of stuff that's in there that we can't access right now. So maybe once the full game comes around, there will be some cool stuff in there. Maybe with the ability to run, it will help alleviate some of these issues. But right now, as we sit in the demo, Fort Tarsis is by far my least favorite part of this game, which will lead us into what Frankie was talking about in Matthias and some of the story elements. So from what we understand about this game right now is the narrative will take place in Fort Tarsis. Once we're out in the world, we can kind of glean how that's going to play out. That basically we have some talking heads, very similar to what we might get in a Destiny mission. You got some voiceovers, some people that are telling you some of the things that are going on with the mission at hand. But the majority of what we're going to experience in the story progression is going to come from Fort Tarsis, our interaction with the NPCs in Fort Tarsis, and everything that plays out in Fort Tarsis. So, we got to see one little mini story in the demo here kind of play out and involving one of the people in there. And so I don't think we've seen enough to really pass judgment one way or another, or to really deem how the story is going to play out in Anthem. And it's going to be interesting to see how they fit the lore in and how all that works together, because obviously a huge part of this game is going to be the lore and the world building. So I'm curious to see how all that comes together. We got little hints of it in the demo here, but not a ton. There was only a few pieces of lore that we could actually pick up in the demo there. But Frankie, I know you had some issues with the Matthias storyline and everything that went into that. So talk to me about the narrative and what, if anything, we can glean from this, and what do you think about the future of the narrative in this game?
First of all, Matthias sucks. He's the worst possible character they could have introduced to be your first mission in this demo. I don't ever want to talk to him in the main game. If I could find a way to make him never want to work with me, I'm going to do it immediately. But even just in that, though, the quality of those cutscenes and the writing itself, not very good. Every conversation I had with him after the first one that I sat through and did all the decisions and all that stuff, I skipped every other thing that guy had to say. I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear it from any of the three of them. I was like, I hate this guy so much. And even when you're out on the field, there's the voices coming over through, the comms while you're out on your mission. Even listening to him talking there, I'm like, dude, shut up. I don't want to listen to this guy talk at all. But it isn't even just him. It's not your main kind of voice that you have in your head when you're out on free roam, but there's another female voice that's just so uninterested in what she's doing. I know people complained about Peter Dinklage and how he sounded, really, robotic, even though he was a ghost in Destiny. This is the same thing all over again, but this time, I feel like that person is legitimately just looking at the script yeah, you have to go over here now, and then one of these things will happen. If you're not excited about this mission, I'm not excited about this mission,
Right.
And it's just the other people that I've interacted with in in that whole area, and granted it's because you're throwing me at level 10. Obviously a lot of things have progressed in the game already at this point, so
yep.
I don't know any of these characters. I don't know anything about what's going on with them. I know other people don't like Matthias, so I automatically like them a lot. But even the bartender, you have these weird conversations with him that I'm not sure what the point of is. He's
right.
getting into these weird situations, and he was on this TV show, and there's all this stuff. I'm like,
Super Cooper in the chat goes, "You guys talk to the bartender? What a douche!"
Yeah, yeah. I don't know. He's just a strange character that I don't. It's kind of unfortunately with Mass Effect Andromeda. As I was playing that game, there were maybe 2 side characters that I cared about and wanted to explore more and do their side missions, their loyalty missions, and all that stuff. But I feel like, and this is maybe just me, but the BioWare before, where you had all these great characters, all these different personalities and whatnot that you could experience, interact with, and those ones that mattered in the, like in the story. I feel like since Andromeda, like that's probably the Mass Effect team that's working on this with the writing. I think a lot of the core, the people who made those games in the past aren't there anymore, or are just not involved with this. That's the only thing I can glean from this is the BioWare that we want, to have a story and characters that we love on display isn't the BioWare of 2019, anymore. So I don't know, but first, like I said, first taste, having Matthias as my first mission handler. I don't want to interact with the characters in this world. I don't care about them.
That's not good news, because from my understanding, all this story is going to come from Fort Tarsis. So these are going to be the people that we're going to be interacting with over the course of the campaign. And, like you mentioned, though, I mean, it's kind of difficult to get into what's going on when we're jumping in at level 10. We don't know what the hell's happened beforehand. There might be introductions of these characters that make them a little bit more likable early on, and you just kind of grow to understand who they are. But I'm kind of intrigued by the manifold, the division, and the multiplication of Matthias, and some of that stuff I'm interested in from a sci-fi fan's perspective. I'm curious to see about it, but it's really difficult when you get dropped in at level 10, because obviously you've missed a lot. You're further into the campaign, and it's really hard to make any kind of connections to anything. They're just, and to be honest with you, I almost don't want to listen. I almost didn't want to listen to any of it. I skipped a couple of scenes because I feel like if this is a part of the game, if this is part of the narrative, I feel like I'm entering into kind of, I mean, sure, it's not super spoilery, but I want to play this thing as it happens. I don't really want to get too much information from this point in the game where we're at. But some of the characters are a little goofy. Some of the voice acting is subpar. But I am curious about the story, because for a game like this, it's a BioWare game, it's a sci-fi game, it's a beautiful world that they've created. I do want to invest into the characters. I do want to invest into the story and know what the hell's going on, right down to the nitty-gritty, through finding all the lore laying around or talking to people for Tarsus. So I am interested in that regard, but the fact that we're talking to these people and knowing that these are going to be the characters that we're going to be interacting with throughout the entire time of this game, yeah, you're like, okay, I could probably do without the bartender, and maybe Matthias could shut up a little bit more, but we'll see what happens.
Yeah, I don't feel as strongly about the characters as Frankie does, but part of that is because I couldn't watch half of the cutscenes because the game just wasn't working. So I was trying to watch like the final cutscene when we came back from the mission, and it just wouldn't activate. So I don't really know what the outcome of that was, or really how that story all played out. The bartender though, he was by far the biggest d-bag that I came across in Fort Tarsis. So I agree with Coop on that. So like I said, there's a lot in Fort Tarsis that we haven't got to experience. There's a lot of characters in there that we haven't really got to interact with yet. So I am still hopeful that all that stuff's going to play out, because I do like the concept of the world of Anthem. I think there's some really interesting things that they can mine and explore here. So I am very curious to see how they work the lore into the game, and how they build this world, and how that all functions just in this space in Fort Tarsis here. I'm still skeptical about how that's going to play out from a narrative perspective, and if that's really going to give us the type of satisfying story that we know BioWare can deliver to us. But I am intrigued to see how it all plays out. Just kind of cautiously optimistic at this point about where we're going to go narratively from there, because like I said, the whole story of the Anthem of creation, and the gods that have left these tools behind, and the whole world that they've started to build here, I do think is really, really interesting from a science fiction perspective. So we've dove into a lot of the different aspects of the game right now. I do want to have us touch on like where we see Anthem fitting in to the loot shooter space. So we've mentioned Destiny on the show. We've mentioned Diablo. The Division, and this is something Anthem and the Division 2 are going to be forever linked together, because they're coming out within weeks of each other. So there's a very real tug of war that is going to be going on for players' attention in this space, as we have two basically third-person shooters in Anthem and the Division 2 coming out right at the same time. They're obviously joining into a space that Destiny's occupied for a very long time. Diablo's still out there. That one's kind of its own thing. Borderlands 3 will eventually come out and be in this space as well. But for the most part, I think we're looking at the Division, Anthem, and Destiny. Like, these are kind of the three horses in this race, so to speak. So, Brent, I want to bring you in on this. Where do we see Anthem fitting into the grand scheme of things in the midst of this genre? Do they have enough to pull us away from some of these other games? Is there enough here for this to be its own unique experience and make us want to dedicate a decent amount of our time to this? Obviously, the full game is not out yet, so we'll temper our full verdict on this for another day. But as it stands right now, with your experience with the demo, what do you think, Ben?
Well, obviously, based on the demo alone, all sorts of red flags. But when I play a game like Destiny or any of these loot shooters, it's about the gameplay and it's about the rewards and the loot. That's what I want out of a game. And when you get past all the technical BS that we had to deal with, playing the game was fun. Flying around the javelin, combat with all the bosses and with the hordes of enemies that would show up on screen, a lot of fun. So that part I dig. The sci-fi story, we don't know much about it. I didn't pay attention to a whole lot because we were dropped in the middle of it, but I am intrigued by that. And if there's a strong story here, okay, if BioWare is able to write this with a deft hand and kick out a good story, I'll be very, very intrigued. This is something I could buy into because I do like the weapon customizations and the weapon crafting and all that stuff and all the statistics that go in there. I think that stuff is really, really addicting. And if the game is fun to play, I will make time for it. I do think there is a place for Anthem because it's more focused on PvE. Destiny is PvE, but there's a lot of PvP. I think that's what gives Anthem kind of, I wouldn't say a leg up, but it sets it apart is it's all PvE. It's all PvE. And that, we talked about this last night, boys, you're like, this allows them to focus on those elements. Or you actually mentioned earlier, it's like, it's all about the abilities of the Javelins and working as a crew. It's more co-op focused. And I think that's going to be appealing to a lot of people. You don't have to worry about, Crucible and balancing all that stuff. It's just, hey, look, we are souped up. Let's go in here and blow everything up real good and have fun doing it. And if we can get past all that technical BS, if they can iron those things out, I absolutely do believe there's a place for this game as long as the end game content is amazing and there's a lot to do. Obviously, we know there's only going to be 3 strongholds at launch, but we don't know what else we're going to be able to do in the world. There's a lot of world events you can do. We don't know what else is going to come that's going to drop at launch. So end game is going to be crucial. The story is going to be crucial, and just balancing and technical issues. That's all they got to do. If they can iron all that stuff out and everything is good up in the end game and there's a lot of stuff to do, it has a place in this genre.
Only 3 strongholds at launch. I didn't realize that was that was the thing. It's slightly disappointing, but hopefully there's other activities and things that they're going to unleash on us at some point here. Frankie, what do you think, man? Where does Anthem fit into this big games as a service loot shooter ball that we find ourselves in?
Honestly, I don't know. When I had first got my hands on the game, I felt really good about it. I love the mechanics. I love the way the game played, and I felt really confident about it. But after this weekend, seeing how that game handles in the wild and just all the weird archaic systems it has, I don't know, man. I feel like with the Division 2 coming out, they learned a lot from the first game. That game also went through hell getting to the point where it finally, the Division 1 was an amazing game. So I feel like Anthem coming into this race with, not only Destiny, but the Division having had the growing pains, the experiences that have shaped what those games are going to be in comparison to when Anthem launches. I think Anthem, when it launches, is going to be a very tough sell to, if you're into Destiny or if you're into the Division. I feel like those are the 2 games that are going to eat up that market share for a long time. And it isn't that I want to see Anthem fail. I really do love the gameplay loop of that game, and the different javelins, the different abilities. That stuff is all a lot of fun to play. It's very unique to that game. I'm not going to be able to hop into Destiny and have the ability to change up my different the grenades and melee attacks. That stuff's all locked. Anthem, it's no, you want you have other options for this. You want to do a dash. You want seeking rockets? Here you go. Want cluster grenades? There you go. Sticky grenades. Have fun. And it's just, at the end of the day, I yes, all that stuff is fun, but like I said before, I don't think all these technical problems are going to be ironed out by launch, especially this infinite load bug. And knowing stuff like that, knowing that I'm going to have all these load screens in the middle of missions, that, I don't have those problems with other games in this genre. I'm not doing a strike in Destiny and I get to the next area and I have to load into, a cave I walk into. And it's even just like the small things. Like if I'm doing free roam in Anthem, if I leave the boundaries that I don't know exist, I have to load back into wherever the hell I was before.
Right.
If you're out doing free roam, and the game encourages you to explore because you're finding all these different areas where you're exploring, getting experience for finding them and whatnot. I don't know that I can't fly over, down to the city that I can see, like it's annoying. Like stuff like that is just really off-putting. And there's too much of it in Anthem, I think, right now for that game to really take off, like, once that game launches. Like, I feel like when we revisit Anthem, maybe 6-8 months after launch, it'll be a drastically different story. Mm-hmm. But out of the gate, I think that game's going to have a hard time catching on just because of where the Division 2 and Destiny 2 are going to be.
That's absolutely the advantage of those two games over Anthem. Anthem doesn't have anything to learn from. In this space, they don't have any kind of experience to learn from. What works and what doesn't work. Where the Division 2, the Division 1 changed drastically from launch to where it is now. Mm-hmm. And then they took all that information, like, okay, look, this is what works. Let's put that into Division 2. So I expect the Division 2 to be a solid game at launch, a really, really good experience for Anthem, based on this. And they have never done this type of game before. I mean, I guess some of this team might have worked on Knights of the Old Republic back in the day, but still, this is a new venture for them, and they don't have the advantage of learning from past mistakes. It's going to be bumpy. There's going to be a lot more issues at launch for this than what we saw with Destiny 2 and what we'll probably see from Division 2.
The other big problem that they have is the fact that EA is their publisher. And this is something we've talked about in the podcast before even, but does EA have the patience to have Anthem kind of go through that growing pains phase that it's going to go? It's going to happen. Look, these games are going to go through that. But does EA have the patience to let BioWare tweak that game to the point where it needs to be successful?
Well, like I said, they're on the hot seat right now with their previous releases having issues here and there, and they're gonna feel the heat because they're feeling the heat right now. I can assure you that right now. With so many people playing this beta this weekend or this demo that didn't have the pre-order, that got in on a friend's code, a lot of those people are like, nope, I'm good. I'll wait for the Division 2. And I mean, that hurts. That sort of thing hurts. Yes, like I said earlier, us and the people in the chat, they understand how betas work, and they understand that things can improve over time. But for a lot of people, man, when they go in there, and this is a demo. This is them playing this game, and this is EA trying to sell it to them, and they're like, nope, this is crap. I'm not buying this game. That sale is gone, and EA knows that, and that's why they're already feeling the heat after this week, and I guarantee you. And they're probably breathing down BioWare's neck. They're like, whatever you need to do to fix this shit before next weekend, do it now. And it's just, if they see that affect the bottom line at launch, yeah, I am worried too, man. I am worried how they're going to react towards BioWare.
That's probably the one thing that I'm going to be keeping an eye on the news sites for, is just knowing EA's history with this kind of stuff. Like 3 months after the fact, like if I start seeing layoffs at BioWare, like
right.
that's it. I'm not going to have any faith in that game's future, in them, supporting it, putting out the content that it's going to need to thrive.
Right.
Like the second they start cutting any of that staff, that's essentially it for Anthem.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, I would be shocked if they pulled the plug on this thing without giving it some type of a legitimate chance at making it. Obviously, you put a lot of time and money into this game. I would think that they wouldn't want to use BioWare, because the reality is, after Mass Effect Andromeda, if Anthem's not a hit, like, BioWare's in trouble, right?
Mm-hmm.
They're just
absolutely.
in serious trouble. So they can't just keep losing Visceral and messing up the Star Wars license and then just tanking Anthem. Like they just can't keep failing. They have to.
Hey man, then the focus goes to Dragon Age. It's okay.
Yeah,
BioWare's
yeah,
not going. They still got Dragon Age to hang on to.
it's just they have to realize that they're going to step foot into the games as a service space, into the loot shooter space, and they can just simply look at past history to predict future behavior. You can see what happened with the launch of Destiny. You can see what happened with the launch of The Division. You can see what happened with Diablo, the launch of Diablo. That thing, people don't remember Diablo 3 was an absolute train wreck when that thing came out.
Did they have that always on DRM thing?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean there was any number of things that were going on with that game that it took a while for that thing to get where it needed to get. So they have to look at this space and be like, okay, clearly there's going to be some growing pains here with Anthem. I do think that this game's going to sell a lot at launch, and it's going to give them enough of a cushion where they're going to be able to let BioWare grow and develop this game, because there's quite a bit of just hype and buzz around this game, positive or negative. You know, there's just a lot of people talking about this game. So hopefully next weekend they can have a better beta experience, or that's something else I wanted to ask you guys about. So the nomenclature of this demo is that it's a demo. They haven't called this a beta. This is the VIP demo. So it's funny. And next week they're going to have, whatever the open, are they calling that a beta, or are they calling it a demo? The open demo. So people are jumping into something and they're playing a demo of a game. So when you use that word demo, I think there's different expectations that come with that. Typically, when you play a demo, you're playing a finely tuned slice of the final piece of the game. You play a demo, you rarely run into the huge issues with a demo. Like betas are different, alphas are different. These are in development games that clearly have some work to do. Mm-hmm. Obviously, Anthem's an online game. It's a games as a service, constantly evolving, all that kind of stuff. But you're calling this a demo, and you're putting this in front of people, and you're giving them those friend codes we talked about earlier, and they're sending them out to their friends like, dude, check out this Anthem demo. Let's play this together. And you try to load into a game, and you're stuck at the loading screen. And then you have to restart the game just to get into the mission. And then you get to the end of the mission, and you're stuck at the end mission screen. And you reload the game again to get into Fort Tarsus. And then you putter around there and try to get to the Forge and be like, Fort Tarsus sucks. Like all this is going on inside of this that you're calling a demo.
Yeah.
Brent, the fact that they called this a demo, could this very simple naming decision, could this impact the future of Anthem, or is that way an overreaction?
Look, man, like I said, there's people out there. Their friends send them a text going, hey, here's the link. Go get this code. Let's play this together. And those people downloaded the game, and they couldn't play. And not only did they say this game sucks, they cut their friend out of their life. Like, I'm never going to trust you again. You're a loser. Your taste in games suck. Get lost. So, no, I mean, like I said, there's hardcore gamers. Even we know that even though it says a demo, the way they were talking on Twitter is like, this is a beta. I mean, they didn't call it a beta, but like, okay, yeah, we're testing this out. We wanted to make sure we could handle this. We can handle this. Okay, it's a beta. Okay, we get it. It's a beta. But, man, like you said, man, the word demo is right there. And for the uninformed and for casual people, when they're like, oh, cool, I'm going to try out this demo of this game that's coming out in like 3 weeks, 4 weeks. Can't wait. Oh, this thing sucks. That sale is gone. Unless there's a drastic turnaround and their friends can go back in there. But, man, I'm not going to trust my friend. I'm like, man, your opinion sucks, so I'm not going to go back and pick this game up. But, yeah, I don't know. Like you said, there's a lot of hype. See, that's the other thing, man. We look at what happens with Call of Duty. And I am not comparing Anthem to Call of Duty, but I'm just saying, a lot of people are like, oh, I'm not playing Call of Duty. I'm not getting it. Nope, not getting it. Boom! Best-selling game of 2018. Bullshit. So the people who are like, I'm not picking this game up. The thing is, man, loot shooters like this, Destiny, The Division, Diablo, they are incredibly intriguing to a lot of people, especially this one because it's PvP. Or PvE, I'm sorry. The focus is PvE, and people love playing games with friends. And so this is going to draw in an audience. Yeah, there'll be some people that might get lost on what happened this weekend, but at the end of the day, friends want to play with friends, and sometimes they'll take chances to be like, look, man, your opinion sucks, but I'll pick it up, and I'll try playing with you at launch, and they'll get their sales. So this genre is very addicting. It is very appealing to a lot of people. So while I think this weekend hurt, I still think, like you said, boys, I think this thing is going to sell pretty well.
What do you think, Frankie? Fatal mistake calling this thing a demo?
I don't know, honestly. I think a lot of people, when they play betas nowadays, they just assume they're demos anyways. So I don't know. I mean, that even the term beta anymore, like, what does it even mean in the gaming space? Like we were talking about earlier.
It's loosely thrown around for sure.
Yeah, and I mean, like Brent mentioned earlier, the Rainbow Six Siege beta, a week before launch, and that thing was a total train wreck.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think this is going to be out of the norm of out of the norm for what people probably expected coming in here, because this is the kind of stuff we've dealt with before.
Yeah, for sure. So circling back to the question about where does Anthem fit in this space. So from my perspective, I've mentioned it several times on the discussion here, but Destiny is the game that I most closely associate with this genre. I really like Diablo. I think that's a super fun game. But I haven't played it nearly as much as Destiny. I really like The Division. Would have liked to have played more of it, especially after they fixed a lot of the stuff with it. I thought the gameplay in there was solid. The world building and just the Ubisoft characters were not to my liking. So it was from just an interest perspective, wasn't as interesting as some of the other games in the space. But the actual act of playing The Division was a lot of fun. Would have liked to play that some more. But the main game I look at in this space is Destiny. It's a game I've been playing pretty much every day since it came out 4.5 years ago. So I have a lot of experience with this game, and there's certain things like I said, I've seen that game from the very first time we had it as an alpha to where it is now. I've seen all the ups and downs. I've seen all the changes. I've seen all the things that they've gone through, and there's certain things that I expect from a game in this space now. Like, I want to be able to pick up my loot when it drops and use it right then and there. I want an amazing UI. And you mentioned it, Brent, but we take Bungie for granted on this. Destiny is bar none probably the best UI ever created in a video game. I'm just gonna throw it out there. It's incredibly smooth.
Mm-hmm.
It does the job. It's not clunky. It's attractive. The matchmaking and the partying up. It's just exquisitely well done when it comes down to it. And it's just a great UI. And Anthem doesn't have that right now. So I miss that in this game right now. Just when it comes down to it, I think like you said, there can be a space for this game. Mm-hmm. It's a PvE focused cooperative experience that I could see us like, hey, Thursday is Anthem night. We go on and play Anthem, and I could see that being a thing where we get in and we play the game, we go through the missions and whatnot, and a lot of that's going to depend on how the end game is and what they do with that and how much it keeps us bringing back. But right now, that's what I see Anthem as, just from this brief time with the game. Like, I can see this currently as like, hey, this is a game we hop into once a week, we do some missions, we have a great time with it, and then we get back to everything else that we're playing. So is this going to be the game that is going to be able to dig its hooks into us and consume us like the other games in this space have the capability of? There's people that are absolutely consumed with The Division. There's people that are consumed with Destiny. You're looking at one of them. There's people that are consumed with Diablo that still play it every single day and every hour that they can, 4 or 5 years into the life of that game. So is Anthem going to have that same ability? And for some people, that probably doesn't matter. They don't care. They can get in, they can play Anthem, they can experience however many hours of content it's in there, and they can be happy with that. They can move on with their day. But what I now expect from this space, from this looter shooter space, is I expect a game that's going to dig its hooks into me that I can come back to over and over again and continue to play and be addicted to and come back to time and time again. So Is Anthem going to have that? That is a question that we don't have answers to right now, and we won't have answers until weeks after the game comes out. Like, it's something that's going to have to play itself out. So right now, I don't know if that's going to be the case. Just from playing the demo this weekend, I'm like, all right, this is something that's a lot of fun to play when we actually get in there and it's working. I could see us playing this once or twice a week when we hop in there and just do some missions together. I can see that. But is this going to be the game that can draw us away from some of these other games? And like I said, I'm looking at this through Destiny colored glasses. Okay,
obviously.
And I obviously really like that game. I've been playing that game for a long time, and it's dug its hooks into me. So this game has to do something extra to take me away from that game. So that's what I'm That's what I'm hoping to see from Anthem. I want to see what this thing's gonna do to really differentiate itself from Destiny in a way that I'm like, okay, I really need to dedicate some time to this game, and I really need to put some time in with this thing and see what it's all about. So, right now, I can't make that decision. The actual game as a whole just doesn't compare to Destiny right now. So, but like I said, I'm cautiously optimistic. I'm looking forward to playing this game again next weekend to see what it's all about, and I do hope that BioWare can kind of carve out its niche in this space and give us something else to do on a weekly, monthly basis in the form of Anthem. So, fellas, anything else on the Anthem table that we need to discuss here?
I think we hit everything that we wanted to talk about based on what we saw this weekend. Like you said, it's a short demo. It's a small piece of the pie. It's an older build. So, I mean, we can only talk about what we experienced, and we can only talk about, what we know so far and what we played, and that's what we've done tonight. We've just talked about how we feel about certain things we like, things we don't like, things we absolutely despise. But every game is going to have that, especially a shooter-looter like this that doesn't have the experience that Destiny and The Division has. And, BioWare is going to have its ups and downs. It's going to be a bumpy road at launch, but they'll find their way. Hopefully, they'll find a way to, like you said, just kind of carve out their own niche and be their own thing. That's an enjoyable experience. So, based on what we played this weekend, a lot of strengths, a whole lot of issues. We'll just see how it unfolds prior to launch, up until launch.
Absolutely. Yeah. So that is going to do it for this discussion here. So we've talked any and everything in the Anthem VIP demo. I think we've tackled this thing from every single angle that we could. So thanks to everybody who showed up in the chat tonight and was in there. We appreciate that. Love seeing you guys in there. Keep the conversation going in the comments underneath the video as well. We want to know what you guys think about Anthem, and we'll hop back in next weekend. We'll play the demo. We'll continue to kind of form our opinions on what Anthem's all about. So if you like what we do here, like the video, subscribe to the channel, hit the little bell so you always know when we go live. At the Short Pause is how you follow us on Twitter, so you can keep up with everything that we do there. Other than that, that's going to do it for us this evening. For Frankie, for Brent, I'm Ben. Thanks everybody for stopping by. We'll see you guys out there on the battlefield. Have a good night.
See you guys.